Princess Yuli stood quietly near the edge of the royal balcony, her small hands gripping the smooth silver railing. The city of Zephyra Prime stretched out below her, glowing with soft lights and floating bridges. It was a beautiful place, filled with high towers made of crystal and trees that sang in the wind. But today, none of that beauty mattered to her. Today was the choosing ceremony, the day when noble males from across the kingdom would come to declare if they wished to court her. It was a tradition that had been followed for hundreds of years. But Yuli already knew how this day would end. She had seen the way the others looked at her, with polite smiles that never reached their eyes. Yuli was different. She was smaller than everyone else in her race. Most Zephyrians were tall and elegant, with long arms and flowing robes. But Yuli was tiny, barely reaching the waist of her royal guards. Her voice was soft, and though she had a sharp mind and a brave heart, people rarely noticed. They only saw her size. They thought it meant weakness. Trumpets made of glowing wind chimes sounded across the sky, announcing the first guest. Yuli took a deep breath and stepped forward as the ceremonial door opened. The first noble, Lord Rallan, walked in with pride. He wore a robe covered in tiny suns and moons that shimmered with each step. He bowed lightly and spoke, "With all due respect, Princess, I must decline. My path lies with someone taller." He turned and left before she could even reply. The next noble, Prince Vel, did the same. "You are kind, Princess," he said, "but I seek a mate who commands the room." "You are too gentle." One after another they came. Some made excuses. Others simply nodded and walked away. None of them saw her for who she truly was. By the end of the ceremony, Yuli stood alone in the great hall. Her crown felt heavy. Her heart felt heavier. The royal advisors whispered among themselves. The queen said nothing, only touching her daughter's shoulder with quiet sympathy. Even the guards looked away, unsure what to say. But Yuli didn't cry. She held her head high and walked out of the room, her small feet making soft taps on the glass floor. Later that evening, when the sky turned violet and the stars blinked awake, Yuli found herself in the hangar bay. This was her favorite place. In the palace. It was quiet, filled with old ships and machines waiting to be repaired. She often came here to escape the noise of the court. She sat under an old scout ship and opened a small tool case. She liked fixing things. Machines didn't judge her. They didn't care about size or voice. If you treated them with care, they worked. Simple as that. As she worked, a sound caught her ear, a soft clank followed by a surprised, "Whoa!" Startled, she looked up to see a figure standing near a stack of crates. It wasn't a Zephyrian. It was a human. The man had short black hair, dark eyes, and wore a plain gray uniform with a small Terran emblem on the sleeve. He looked confused at first, then spotted her under the ship. "Sorry," he said quickly, raising his hands. "Didn't mean to scare you. I was just, looking for the refuel port. Got a bit lost." Yuli blinked. No one ever got lost in the royal hangar. It was guarded, monitored, and clean. But here was a human, not a noble. Not a prince looking at her with open curiosity, not pity. "Not from Zephyra," she said. The man gave a short laugh. "Yeah, I figured the glowing trees and floating teacups gave it away." She smiled a little despite herself. "You're with the embassy?" "Yeah, maintenance team. Name's Aaron." He walked closer, then paused, noticing her small size. But unlike the nobles earlier, he didn't back away or frown. He crouched down to her level and said, "You okay down here? Need help with that panel?" Yuli stared at him for a second. "No one ever asks me that," she said softly. Aaron tilted his head. "Well, maybe they should." She hesitated, then handed him a tool. "Hold this." They worked together quietly. He wasn't fast, but he followed her instructions carefully. He didn't speak much, but when he did, it was with calm and kindness. After a while, Yuli asked, "Do humans ... care about height or strength?" Aaron thought for a moment. Some do. But most of us care more about what a person does than how tall they are. She looked at him closely. "You're strange," he grinned. "You have no idea." For the first time that day, Yuli felt warm inside, not from the ship's lights, but from something quieter. She didn't know it yet, but this strange human was going to change everything, not just for her, but for all of Zephyrah. The next morning, Princess Yuli returned to the hangar earlier than usual. The air still smelled like metal and fuel, and the soft hum of machines filled the space. She didn't expect to see Aaron again, but part of her hoped he would come. She climbed up to the scout ship's open wing panel and began adjusting a few wires. Her mind kept returning to the human man from the night before. He hadn't looked at her like the others did. He didn't try to impress her. He didn't walk away. "Back at it already?" came a familiar voice. Yuli turned quickly. Aaron stood near the doorway, carrying a small toolbox. He looked slightly out of breath, as if he had hurried to get there. "You came back," she said, surprised. "Well," Aaron said with a small grin, "I figured the ship might fall apart without my expert help." Yuli rolled her eyes, but smiled. "You didn't even know where the refuel port was." "Still learning," he said cheerfully, placing the box down beside her. They worked side by side again, just like before. Yuli explained the ship's old systems, and Aaron listened carefully, asking good questions. She had always been the one who learned from others, but now she was the teacher. Just then, the hangar doors slid open with a soft hiss. 3 tall Zephyrian nobles walked in, dressed in fine robes and polished badges. They were sons of council, members important, proud, and full of opinions. Yuli's shoulders stiffened. The tallest of them, Jaril, raised an eyebrow when he saw her. "Princess, you're working with a human servant?" Aaron looked up but didn't say anything. He stood and wiped his hands calmly. "He is not a servant," Yuli said, stepping forward. "He's a guest, and he's helping." The second noble, Drell, chuckled. "Helping with what? Playing with old trash? You should not waste your time. Here, princess. We thought you might be hiding because of yesterday's disappointment." Aaron's eyes narrowed slightly. He didn't like their tone. The third noble, Sarn, leaned toward Yuli. "You still have a chance, you know. If you stop this strange behavior, maybe someone important will still accept you." Yuli clenched her fists, but before she could reply, Aaron stepped forward. "Excuse me," he said in a calm, steady voice. "Is this how noble leaders treat their princess?" All 3 nobles turned to look at him, surprised. "She's trying to learn, trying to build something," Aaron continued. "And you mock her? You judge her because she's small? That says more about you than it does about her." Drell scoffed. "This is not your world, human." "No," Aaron said simply, "but I know respect when I see it, and I don't see it here." There was a long silence. Yuli stared at Aaron, eyes wide. No one had ever spoken up like that for her, not even. In the palace, Jorl finally stepped back. "We won't waste more time here," he said coldly. "Let's go." The 3 nobles left, their footsteps sharp and echoing. When the hangar was quiet again, Yuli turned to Aaron. "You didn't have to do that." "I know," he replied, "but I wanted to." She looked at him with curiosity. "Why?" Aaron scratched the back of his neck. "Because you deserve better. You're smart, you're brave. And if people can't see that, they're blind." Yuli lowered her head, unsure what to say. His words felt heavier than any crown she had worn. "Have you ever thought about doing more?" Aaron asked gently. "Not just fixing ships, but fixing how things work around here?" Yuli laughed softly. "I tried. They don't listen to me. I'm too small, too quiet. They want someone bigger, louder." Aaron smiled. Then maybe it's time you make them listen. She looked up slowly. How? He shrugged. There must be some tradition or rule here that gives you a voice. Something old they've forgotten. Yuli paused, thinking hard. There is something, she said slowly. A set of ancient trials. They're called the Unity Trials. If someone completes them with the princess, it proves they're worthy not just in strength, but in wisdom, balance, and heart. Sounds perfect, Aaron said. Let's do it, Yuli blinked. You would stand with me in front of the council? Face the trials? I'm already standing with you, he said simply. Might as well make it official. For a moment, Yuli felt like the stars above the palace had dropped into her chest. A strange feeling bloomed inside her, not fear, not sadness. Something brighter. Hope. Double quotes, then we'll need to prepare, she said. I'll bring snacks. Aaron replied with a grin. She laughed. A real laugh that echoed across the hangar. In that quiet corner of the palace, among old wires and half-broken engines, a princess and a human made a silent promise. They would not follow the path others set for them. They would make their own. And Zephyrah, whether ready or not, was about to change. The royal council chamber was a wide, shining hall shaped like a star. Its silver walls sparkled under soft blue light. The ceiling was clear crystal, showing the twin moons above. 12 high council members sat in tall chairs that floated slightly off the ground. In the center stood Princess Yuli, and beside her stood Aaron, dressed in a clean dark blue suit with a simple Terran badge. The room was silent. Most council members looked surprised or even confused to see a human standing beside the princess. Council Elder Navin, a serious old Zephyrian with long silver robes, finally spoke. Princess Yuli, what is your request? Yuli stepped forward. Though small in size, her voice was steady. I request permission to begin the Unity Trials. The council stirred. Whispers floated through the chamber like wind. Unity Trials? Those are ancient. No one has done them in generations. And with a human? Elder Navin raised his hand to quiet the room. Why do you wish to begin the trials, Princess? Because I was judged unfairly, Yuli answered. I was told I am too small, too weak to lead. But leadership is not just about size. It is about heart, mind, and courage. The Unity Trials prove all these things. She looked at Aaron. And this man, though not of our kind, has shown me more respect than any noble here. He has agreed to stand with me. A few council members frowned. Others looked thoughtful. Navin nodded slowly. Very well. The Unity Trials shall begin at sunrise. As Yuli and Aaron left the chamber, a few nobles muttered under their breath. One even laughed, but Yuli didn't care. She had taken the first step. The next morning, Yuli and Aaron stood in a quiet valley filled with mist. This was the site of the first trial, the trial of insight. A glowing cube floated in front of them. Inside it, a maze of ancient star maps flickered. Dozens of symbols, paths, and unknown names rotated in layers. The task, said the trial, guide, is to find a safe path from Zephyrah to the lost moon of Velen, using only this star map. You may not use machines or outside help. Aaron leaned close to Yuli. Do you recognize any of these paths? She nodded. Yes, some of these stars are in the old archives. I used to study them when I was younger. He smiled. Then you. Lead, I'll follow. Yuli's fingers moved quickly over the map. She traced ancient star lines, looking for clues. Aaron watched carefully, offering thoughts but never pushing her. After nearly an hour, the glowing cube opened and let out. Soft chime. The correct path lit up in gold. You have passed the trial of insight, the guide said. Yuli grinned. Aaron gave her a thumbs up. That was amazing, he said. You're like a walking space library, she laughed. I used to think all that studying was pointless. Now I'm glad I remembered. The second trial came 2 days later. This one took place in the floating gardens of Zephyra. Massive platforms hovered in the sky, each filled with rare plants. Their roots hung in the air, and glowing sky kelp swayed gently in floating pools. "The trial of balance," the guide announced. "You must replant these delicate sky kelp sprouts during a weather shift. If they are planted too soon or too late, they will not survive." Storm clouds were forming above. Wind began to rise. The garden platforms rocked gently. In looked unsure. "I've never planted anything in my life," he admitted. Yuli smiled. "Then listen closely." She showed him how to hold the soft roots, how to gently press them into the energy soil, and how to feel the change in wind pressure. As the wind grew stronger, the team worked fast but carefully. Aaron's hands were steady. Yuli's timing was perfect. A bolt of silent lightning flashed across the sky, marking the moment of balance. They planted the final sprout just in time. When the storm passed, all the sprouts glowed softly. Not a single one had withered. "You have passed the trial of balance," the guide said. Together. Later, as they rested under a silver leaf tree, Aaron looked up at the swirling clouds. "You know," he said, "I've done engine repairs, zero-gravity welding, and once fixed a toilet on a space bus. But this is the first time I felt like I was doing something that actually mattered." Yuli looked at him with gentle eyes. "You are doing something that matters. You're helping me prove that I can be more than what others see." He paused, then said quietly, "You already are." That evening, back at the palace, messages spread across the city. The news that Princess Yuli had passed 2 trials with a human partner traveled fast. Some nobles scoffed. "Just luck," they said, but many others were curious now. They watched the videos, saw how the human followed, listened, supported, not led with pride, but walked beside her, for the first time. Small children in Zephyra whispered the princess's name with pride. In the quiet of her workshop, Yuli stared at the old survey drone she had been fixing for years. It was her mother's, a queen who had once tried to change the old ways. Now it was Yuli's turn, and she wasn't alone. The sun rose slowly over Zephyra's tallest spires, casting a golden light across the palace. Princess Yuli stood near a window, quietly watching the sky change colors. Today was the day of the final trial, the most difficult one. Aaron entered the room holding 2 cups of warm blue fruit tea. He handed one to Yuli with a smile. "Ready?" he asked. Yuli took the cup and nodded. "As ready as I can be." The last challenge was called the Bridge of Voices. It was not a test of strength or skill. It was a test of heart, trust, and leadership. In this trial, they would have to help 2 villages, Nari and Tovrin, who had been in conflict for many years. The 2 villages lived on opposite cliffs above a deep valley. They shared water, land, and airspace, but always argued about who owned what. The goal of the trial was simple: bring peace between them. But no royal had succeeded in doing this. For over a century, Yuli and Aaron arrived at the valley in a small transport craft. Floating platforms carried them to the top of the cliff where the Bridge of Voices stood. The bridge itself was thin and glowing, made of living energy. It only grew stronger when both sides stepped onto it in peace. If trust was broken, bridge would fade. At one side stood the leader of Nare Elda, a tall Zephyrian woman with wind-gray hair. At the other side stood Torek, the proud leader of Tovrin, known for his strong voice and sharper opinions. Both looked doubtful as Yuli and Aaron stepped between them. "This conflict has lasted too long," Yuli said calmly. "We are not here to order you. We are here to listen." Aaron added, "and maybe help you listen to each other too." Torek crossed his arms. "We've tried that. It never works." Elda shook her head. "They always take more than they give." Yuli took a deep breath. "Then let's do something different. Let's walk the bridge together." The leaders looked at each other, unsure. "You don't have to agree on everything," Yuli continued. "Just agree to talk while we walk." Finally, Elda stepped forward. I will try. Torek sighed and followed. The four of them stepped onto the bridge. At first, the energy under their feet flickered. But as they spoke, it grew brighter. Yuli asked simple questions. What do you need most? What would you give in return? What do your people fear? She didn't interrupt. She let them speak. Aaron listened carefully. Then, he did something unexpected. He repeated their words, but gently, in different ways, so each leader could hear the other's feelings. Not just their anger. You're not asking to take their land, he told Elda. You're asking for fair water sharing. And you're not trying to block their sky routes, he told Torek. You're afraid your crops won't grow if air patterns change. Slowly, the leaders started nodding. By the time they reached the center of the bridge, the energy under their feet had turned solid and bright, glowing like morning light. Elda and Torek looked at each other. We can trade water routes, Elda said, and share the sky timing for harvest winds. Torek added. It wasn't a perfect solution, but it was a beginning. The trial guide, who had watched from a distance, stepped forward. Trial of unity passed. Trust was built. Voices were heard. That night, Yuli and Aaron returned to the palace. The sky above was filled with glowing birds, a sign of peace in Zephyrian culture. News of the trial spread fast. Children painted stars beside Yuli's name on their school walls. Market workers played music written about the bridge walk. Even elders who once doubted her now spoke with respect. Inside the palace, the queen invited Yuli and Aaron to the central hall. The High Council stood waiting. Elder Navin stepped forward. Princess Yuli, you have completed all 3 trials, and you have done so with a human partner. He looked at Aaron. And you, Aaron of Earth, have shown patience, courage, and wisdom. Though not one of us, you stood beside our princess, not ahead of her, not behind her, but as her equal. Yuli stepped forward. I didn't win these trials alone. Aaron never tried to take control. He supported me. He believed in me when others didn't. The queen, silent until now, finally spoke. Today, the past meets the future. Let it be known, unity is not about matching strength. It is about shared spirit. Then she turned to Yuli and smiled. You have proven yourself, my daughter. Not as a fragile princess, but as a true leader. Later, Yuli and Aaron sat again in the sky garden. The stars were bright, and the wind was soft. I still can't believe we passed all the trials, Aaron said. Yuli laughed. You didn't even know what a sky kelp was a few days ago. Still don't, he joked. But I do know this. You're meant to lead. Yuli looked at him, her voice soft. I couldn't have done it without you. He looked at her seriously. Maybe, but I think you just needed someone to remind you what you already had. They sat in peaceful silence. 2 very different people, brought together by trials, trust, and a journey no one expected. The stars above were the same, but something on Zephyra had changed. And it had started with a princess no one believed in, and a human who simply listened. Days passed quickly after the final trial. The news of Princess Yuli and Aaron completing the Unity trials spread beyond the city of Zephyra Prime. It was not just palace talk anymore. It became a story told across the skies, in schools, on spaceports, and even on distant colony moons. For the first time in a very long time, the people of Zephyra spoke the princess's name with pride. In the royal palace, Yuli walked through the gardens with her head held high. Her steps were calm, but her heart beat faster each day. She still remembered how the noble houses had once whispered behind her back, calling her too small, too quiet, too weak. But now, those same voices had grown quiet. Now, new voices had begun to rise. One morning, a soft knock came at Yuli's study. Door. She opened it, and was surprised to see Elder Kareen, an old noble who had once said she was unsuitable for leading. He bowed slowly. Princess Yuli, he said, his voice more gentle than before, I came to speak and to apologize. Yuli raised her eyebrows, unsure what to say. I watched your trials, he continued. I was wrong. I judged you by size, not by strength of heart. And I judged your human companion unfairly. Yuli stepped aside and invited him in. Why have you changed your mind now? She asked honestly. Because, Corinne said, sitting down carefully, you did something no prince or noble ever did. You listened to the people. You solved a conflict others avoided for years. And you showed that leadership doesn't mean being the loudest voice, it means hearing every voice. Yuli listened closely. I would like to bring a motion before the council, Corinne said. To remove the old exile clause, the one that says a small or unfit heir may be sent away for their own safety. It's time we end that law. Yuli smiled. That would mean a lot to many. Corinne nodded. You've changed hearts, princess. Even mine. Across the city, things began to shift. In schools, young children began drawing pictures of Yuli and Aaron walking the glowing bridge of voices. Some drew themselves beside her, planting sky kelp or holding star maps. Artists sang songs about unity between species. Craftsmen built small models of the floating gardens and sold them in markets. The once ignored unity trials were now remembered as a symbol of hope. Even in noble homes, there were changes. Some noble daughters, once told to remain silent and graceful, now asked to study diplomacy and science like Yuli. Young men, who once believed strength was all that mattered, began to talk about patience, balance, and kindness, just as Aaron had shown. Back at the palace, Aaron was fixing a communication panel in the hallway when two young Zephyrian guards walked by. One of them stopped and said, "You're the human who helped the princess, right?" Aaron turned and nodded. "That's me." The other guard stepped forward. "I never met a human before." "I thought you were all loud and rough," Aaron laughed. "Some are, but I'm more of the wrench and tea type." The guards chuckled. "You know," the first one said, "you've made us think differently. About humans, about outsiders, even about our own people." Aaron stood and stretched. "That's a good start. Thinking different is how real change begins." They saluted him with a smile, then walked on. Aaron turned and saw Yuli watching from the hallway. She had heard the whole thing. "You're getting popular," she said playfully. Aaron shrugged. "I'm just fixing panels." "You're fixing more than that," she replied. Later that week, a large event was held in the palace gardens. It wasn't a grand royal ball, but something simpler, a cultural sharing day. It was Yuli's idea. She invited not only nobles, but also workers, students, travelers, and even off-world guests. People brought foods from their villages, wore colorful clothes, played music, and told stories. The most surprising part? Aaron set up a human table with items from Earth, a plastic fork, a toy spaceship, a simple Earth flag, and a small music player playing soft guitar tunes. Children gathered around, asking questions. "Do humans eat with those? Is that your planet's symbol? Can I touch this?" Aaron smiled and answered every question. Nearby, Yuli stood beside an old farmer from a rural moon, laughing and sharing fruit juice. For once, no one looked at her like she didn't belong. A small Zephyrian girl walked up and gently pulled Yuli's robe. "Princess," she said softly, "I want to be brave like you when I grow up." Yuli knelt down and looked her in the eyes. "You already are." That night, as the celebration ended, Yuli and Aaron stood alone in the sky garden. The stars were bright, and the palace lights glowed soft below. "You were right," Yuli said. "Change really does begin with someone unexpected." Aaron looked at her. Sometimes all it takes is one person standing beside the right person. She turned to face him. "Do you regret it? Joining the trials? Standing with me?" He smiled. Not for a second. They stood in peaceful silence, the wind gently moving through the garden trees. Zephyra was still the same world, but something inside it had changed. Not just laws or titles, but hearts. And that was the beginning of a future no one had planned, but many had hoped for. The soft light of dawn stretched across the sky of Zephyrah Prime. The city slowly awoke, floating platforms gliding smoothly between crystal towers. Birds with shimmering feathers sang gentle songs that filled the air. But inside the grand palace, something was different. The halls buzzed with excitement and quiet hope. Princess Yuli stood near a tall window in her chamber, watching the sunrise. Her small hands rested lightly on the glass. The past weeks had changed everything. The trials, the council's acceptance, the people's new respect. Still, she felt a new kind of weight on her shoulders. The weight of responsibility. A soft knock came at the door. Yuli turned to see Aaron enter, holding a small scroll in his hand. "Morning," he said with a warm smile. "You wanted to see me?" Yuli nodded. "Yes, the council sent this. They want us to prepare a new Charter 1 that will open Zephyrah's gates to all species, not just nobles or chosen few." Aaron raised his eyebrows. "That's a big step," Yuli sighed. "It is. But it feels right. Our world is bigger than old traditions. We need new laws for a new future." Aaron sat beside her. "I'm ready to help, whatever it takes." The next days were full of meetings and discussions. Yuli and Aaron worked with scribes and council members to write what they called the Unity Charter. It was a simple idea. Everyone in Zephyrah, no matter their size, species, or origin, could study, work, and live freely. The charter promised respect and opportunity for all. Not everyone was happy. Some nobles whispered in secret rooms. They feared change, worried about losing their power and traditions. But Yuli stayed calm. She remembered what Aaron had said. Change begins with someone unexpected. One afternoon, as Yuli walked through the palace gardens, she met Lady Mara, a noble woman known for her sharp tongue and strong opinions. "You really believe this unity charter will work?" Mara asked, folding her arms. Yuli smiled gently. "I believe people want to be heard and treated fairly. If we give them the chance, they will surprise us." Mara looked doubtful. "But what about the risks? Outsiders could cause trouble." Aaron joined them, his eyes steady. "Every new idea feels risky at first, but fear of change never built a better future." Mara hesitated, then nodded slowly. "Maybe you're right." Days later, a ceremony was held in the palace's great hall. Council members gathered to vote on the Unity Charter. The room was tense, filled with whispers and anxious glances. Yuli stood before the council, her voice strong and clear. "Change is never easy. But the trials showed us what is possible when we listen and work together. This charter will open doors, build bridges, and make Zephyrah a home for all." She looked at Aaron. "I ask you to stand with me, for unity, for hope, for a better tomorrow." The council voted. Some voices were loud, others quiet. But when the final count came, the charter passed by a clear majority. Cheers and applause filled the hall. Yuli smiled, feeling warmth spread through her. Outside the palace, news of the Unity Charter spread quickly. Markets and schools celebrated. Foreign traders arrived with new goods and stories. Artists created murals of Yuli and Aaron walking side by side, holding hands across stars. A new energy filled Zephyrah, one of hope, curiosity, and friendship. One evening, Yuli and Aaron walked on the palace's rooftop garden. The twin moons hung low, casting silver light on their faces. Yuli spoke softly. "Do you think I'm ready for all this? The changes, the challenges?" Aaron looked at her with steady eyes. "You've already shown you're ready. Size didn't stop you. Fear didn't stop you. Nothing will," she smiled. "You believed in me when others didn't." He reached out, gently touching her hand. "Because I saw the truth. You're not just a princess. You're a leader." Months passed. The Unity Charter became law. Schools opened their doors to students from distant planets. Zephyra's spaceports welcomed ships from many worlds. Yuli often visited these places, listening to stories, learning new ideas, and sharing her own. Aaron stayed by her side, not as a guard or servant, but as a partner and friend. Together, they traveled to distant moons, met alien leaders, and built friendships. Their story became a symbol across many worlds, proof that respect and kindness could cross any star. One day, as they looked out at a new dawn, Yuli whispered, "This is only the beginning." Aaron smiled, "And we'll face it together." The stars above shone brighter than ever, as if cheering for the tiny princess and the human who saw her true strength. The halls of the Zephira Palace were brighter now, not only because of the shining crystals and the soft light, but because of the change in the air. The voices inside were warmer, kinder. The kingdom was no longer divided by old fears or pride. Princess Yuli walked through the great hall, her steps light but confident. People greeted her with smiles, not whispers. Today, she was not just a princess. They saw her as a leader, a symbol of hope. Beside her walked Aaron, the human who had once been a stranger, now a trusted friend and partner. It had been months since the Unity Charter was passed. Zephira was changing faster than anyone expected. New students from many planets filled the schools. Traders from distant systems arrived with gifts and stories. The air smelled of possibility. Yuli and Aaron had traveled to many worlds. They met leaders, listened to people's hopes, and shared ideas. But no matter how far they went, Zephira was always home. One morning, as the twin suns rose, Yuli and Aaron stood on the palace balcony overlooking the city. Below, children played in the streets, their laughter ringing clear. Yuli looked at Aaron. "Do you remember when I was rejected by everyone, when they said I was too small?" Aaron smiled. "I remember. And I also remember how you proved them all wrong." She laughed softly. "I couldn't have done it without you." He shook his head. "No, you had it inside you all along. I just helped you see it." Suddenly, a messenger arrived with a sealed scroll. Yuli took it carefully and broke the seal. Her eyes widened. "It's an invitation," she said. "From the Galactic Council." Aaron looked over her shoulder. "What does it say?" Yuli read aloud, "You are invited to represent Zephira in the Galactic Council's assembly, to speak for unity and peace among all species." Her heart beat faster. This was a great honor and a great challenge. Days later, Yuli and Aaron traveled aboard a sleek starship toward the galactic capital. The journey was long but filled with hope. At the council's vast chamber, representatives from hundreds of planets gathered. Yuli stood tall, feeling the weight of her people's trust. When it was her turn to speak, she looked around at the many faces, some unfamiliar, some hopeful, some doubtful. She took a deep breath and spoke clearly. "Honored leaders, I come from Zephira, a world once divided by fear and old rules. But through unity, respect, and courage, we have found a new path. A path where size, species, or origin do not decide one's worth." She paused, then added, "I stand here not alone, but with a human friend who believed in me when others did not. Together, we show that cooperation is stronger than division." The room was silent, then filled with applause. After the speech, many came forward to speak with Yuli and Aaron. They shared ideas, made plans, and promised to work together. One leader from a distant star smiled and said, "Your story is inspiring. It shows that even the smallest voice can change the galaxy." Yuli smiled. "And every friend, no matter where they come from, makes that voice stronger." Back on Zephira, life continued to grow and change. Yuli's small size was no longer a problem, but a symbol of something greater. She taught others that courage is not measured by height or strength, but by heart. Aaron became a well-known figure, not because he was human, but because he was a true friend and ally. Together, they helped Zephira open its doors to new ideas, new friends, and a future full of hope. One quiet evening, Yuli and Aaron sat beneath the twin moons in the palace garden. The stars twinkled above like ancient promises. Yuli looked up and said softly, "This journey has taught me so much." Aaron nodded. "Like?" "That sometimes the most unexpected people make the biggest difference. And that true strength comes from standing together." He smiled. "Then we'll face whatever comes next together." They sat side by side, their hands brushing lightly. Two very different worlds, joined by respect and trust. The future was bright, and it belonged to all of them.